Touhou Baguettes show is the 3-stage series of the Touhou print works, beginning with Silent Sinner in Blue, which I've already made a video on, Cage and Lunatic Runagate, the subject of this video, and Inaba of the Moon and Inaba of the Earth. Although it wouldn't be accurate to call Cage and Lunatic Runagate a second part, as Silent Sinner and Lunatic Runagate were being serialized concurrently. Let's take a quick look at the Touhou timeline to give some reference on where we're at right now. The most recent game to come out before Baguettes show was Touhou 9.5, Shoot the Bullet, in December 2005. Then Silent Sinner started serialization in June 2007 and ended in April 2009. Lunatic Runagate also started in June 2007 and ended in June 2009. Between those runs, Touhou 10, Mountain of Faith, Touhou 10.5, Scarlet Weather Rhapsody, Touhou 11, Subterranean Animism released. After the conclusion of Lunatic Runagate came Touhou's 12, Undefined Fantastic Object, and 12.3, Hiso Tensugu, both released on the same day in August 2009. Zune was pretty fucking busy these couple of years. Cage and Lunatic Runagate isn't like Silent Sinner in Blue or any of the Touhou manga because it isn't a manga at all. If you wonder why I refer to the print works as the print works, this is why. Not all of the written Touhou stories are mangas. Lunatic Runagate instead takes the form of an 8-chapter novel, each chapter being its own short story taking on the perspective of a different character during the events of Silent Sinner in Blue. It only seems right to start off at chapter 1, right? The first chapter takes on the perspective of Aideen, and it becomes apparent as you read through this chapter that Lunatic Runagate is designed to be a companion piece to Silent Sinner. Not only was the writing of and the serialization of the works concurrent, the events within their stories are too. Chapter 1 takes place during the full moon celebration that's happening at Te during the first chapter of Silent Sinner. Te even directly references the summoning of the god Ama no Iwato Wake no Mikoto, who were summoned up by Reimu in Silent Sinner's first chapter. Now, Lunatic Runagate is not a retelling of Silent Sinner. As I've mentioned, it's a companion piece. What the story offers is more depth, more insight, and a further exploration into not just the events of Silent Sinner, but also the world of Gensokyo as a whole. For example, in Chapter 7 of Silent Sinner, the Watatskis received their letter from Aideen. I was confused as hell at this moment when reading Silent Sinner, as when the Watatskis opened the letter, the number 1 just appeared in such a flashy way for seemingly no reason before settling onto the paper. And afterwards they only say, "Sick, no one's read this," without explaining shit about the events that just happened. Lunatic Runagate explains what that was. It's a quantum seal that Aideen affixed onto the letter so that the Watatskis know that that shit wasn't tampered with. On one hand, I'm glad I now understand what the hell that was. On the other, it kinda sucks that I had to read a whole other story to understand details like that. Some fucking uncomfortable detail that I honestly would like to think less about is the Watatsuki family tree. So, the two sisters are distant relatives of Aideen. Aideen's grandnephew is the husband of Toyohime. Yodohime is also married to Toyohime's son. This makes Yodohime not only Toyohime's sister, but also her daughter-in-law. The moon sure does like their purity, huh? Fucking gross. The whole purity bit is explained in Chapter 2, the chapter that takes on Kaguya's perspective. In it, we actually learn why those on the moon are hyper-racist towards Earthlings, and that's because impurity is a curse on the Earth as a whole that takes away the eternity that's naturally inherent to living things. This is why the Lunarians are super old, though they are still capable of being killed, and why they have an extreme xenophobia towards Earth life. They fear their eternity being taken away and having to eventually die like Earthlings. Chapter 2 is where the common motif of the heavy incorporation of folklore and Japanese mythology becomes more apparent. This chapter explores some of Kaguya's backstory by weaving it into the tale of the bamboo cutter in a way that remains consistent with both the original story and that of the world of Touhou. This use of folklore is the basis of not just this chapter, but also the next 2. The story used in Chapter 3, Toyohime's chapter, is the story of Urashima Taro. If you played Okami, congrats, you've done your required reading and we'll get a general gist of what this is. The story of Urashima Taro is about a fisherman who gets transported underwater to the Dragon Palace, and when he leaves, 100 years have passed. Touhou's retelling of the story has him instead getting gapped off to the moon's lunar palace and Toyohime tricking him into thinking he's in the Dragon Palace. As a retelling of the story serves another purpose. It gives insight into both Aideen's growth as a person as well as the Watatsuki's views on Earthlings. When Toyohime asked Aideen about what to do with the fisherman, she tells her to straight off the dude, which Toyohime wasn't capable of doing. Despite being a racist, her racism isn't as intense as other Lunarians. And Aideen has definitely changed her views from once being like, fuck it, kill him, to now looking to integrate with Earth society. She's come a long way. Not only does the use of folklore give Lunatic Runagate a classic feel, I feel that the art used throughout the chapters does an amazing job in giving that aesthetic as well. The art for Cajun Lunatic Runagate is done by Tokiyama, who you may or may not know depending on how in you are with Touhou. He not only has done the art for this, he's also responsible for the art in Touhou's 17.5 Sunken Fossil World. His art style is gorgeous, and it feels like a modernization of the Sumie ink brush style. The Sumie style works incredibly well with Touhou as it provides that distinctly old Japanese feel that's fitting of the setting of Gensokyo, a setting where that which is old and forgotten goes. The way Tokiyama fills in blank space is clever. The subtlety of the lines can give the impression of the surroundings without actually having to fully draw in those backgrounds, which, in the style, would result in a very busy and cluttered image. Chapter 4, Moko's chapter, has got to be my favorite chapter of the 8. And the reason for that is that it's from the perspective of Moko. Can you tell I like her? This chapter opens with Moko being tsundere as all fuck. I only escort people because I don't want to see corpses, definitely not because I'm nice or some shit like that, and I totally didn't watch the person leave the forest because I was worried. Nope, definitely looking at some smoke. She's fucking adorable. This chapter's weird. Moko took no part in the events of Silent Sinner and Blue, and this chapter doesn't have a reveal of Moko was behind it all or any shit like that. It's almost exclusively an exercise in world building. The majority of the chapter goes in depth with Moko's past and how she came across the Hodai elixir that gave her immortality. Moko's perspective is a fun one. She's such a depressed masochist, man. I just wish she took care of herself more than not at all. But it's not just Moko that makes me really like this chapter, but the story about Moko's past is really engaging. This has got to be the most standalone chapter of them all. It's entirely self-contained, with zero involvement of the lunar invasion, and I would recommend that even if you're not interested in reading the rest of Cajun Lunatic Runagate, to at least read this chapter. I would not recommend the same for Chapter 5, Yukari's chapter. So here's the thing about Lunatic Runagate. It is a lot drier than the manga and the games. When you read Silent Sinner, the focus there is on the characters, their personalities, and how they interact with each other. It's more focused on hijinks and them being goofy as fuck, especially the Scarlet Devil crew in Silent Sinner. The same can be said about the writing in the games themselves too. There's a lot of lines that are deliberately comedic and over the top. It's not enough for Alice to just say, "I'm stronger." She needs to be overly excessive about how she says it. That really doesn't happen in Lunatic Runagate. Lunatic Runagate is focused primarily on the world building. As such, it's mostly conversation or recollection of events without too much happening through most of the work. All of the action is in Silent Sinner. Lunatic Runagate is to fill in those gaps in Silent Sinner. This can be either very interesting or boring as shit depending on how interested you are in something like that. If you really like the setting of Gensokyo, you'll probably find a lot to love in these stories. If you're like, I like the girls, Reimu make da shoot, then you'll probably fall asleep by the second paragraph. With that said, this has gotta be my least favorite of the chapters because it is especially dry as hell. Coming hot off of Moko's chapter, this shit was a bore. These chapters aren't long, but the talk about the moon phases felt like that took a whole fucking lunar cycle to get through. But when you get through that, you get into chapter 6, Raisin's chapter. No, not the A&T Raisin, not the cool Raisin. You get discount bargain bin ass elitist as fuck Raisin. This bitch is really like pounding rice is manual labor, and that unproductive shit is for the lower class. Anyway, I didn't talk about this during the Silent Sinner video because this really only hit me while editing it and now seems like a good enough time as any since they both show up in this chapter. But I came to the realization that the Watatsuki sisters are the moon's parallels to Reimu and Yukari. Yorihime is Reimu's analog and Toyohime is Yukari's. Between Reimu and Yorihime, both are aesthetically similar as they wear predominantly red clothing and wear a large ribbon in their hair. They both wield big sticks, a gohei and a sword respectively, and they both have the power to channel gods. Similarly, Yukari and Toyohime are both purple with a mob cap. They both are often seen holding a fan, and both their powers involve borders. Yukari being the gap yokai and Toyohime controlling the border between the Earth and Moon. The amount of similarities in both aesthetic and ability feels too deliberate for it to be just a coincidence, and it adds another layer to the purpose and role of the Watatsukis in these stories. They're not just meant to be bad guys of the week, they're a mirror of the protagonists. They are them, but better. With the realization, it then strikes me as odd why they're so disliked. Usually in video games, you but better often results into a loved character. It's your Virgil to your Dante, your Sam to your Raiden. So it's interesting to see that same concept result in the opposite reaction for the Watatsukis. That's probably because they come off as mad racists. No one likes a racist. But I do like Yomu, who is the perspective of chapter 7. Every chapter so far has taken on a different perspective, and with that a different tone and personality in each chapter. Zun, in the afterwards, says that he wanted to focus on the supporting characters. We see Reimu and Marissa in every single work. We don't need more of them to understand them. That's why Lunatic Runagate focuses on these side characters. It's to deepen our understanding of them as they get less of a chance to shine in the spotlight. And after reading this novel, I can assuredly say I would love to see more of not only Moko, but also especially of Yomu. Yomu's chapter is filled with her personality, how she sees the world and how the world sees her. She's naive as hell and adorable as fuck. She carries herself with a level of sincerity, awkwardness, and obliviousness that is so incredibly entertaining, funny, and just precious. I've already said that Mocha's chapter is my favorite, but Yomu's is so close to that, man. So fucking close, and that's because it's Yomu. There's a reason why she consistently ranks high on popularity polls. She's just a damn solid character. One of my favorite moments of Lunatic Runagate is when Yomu's tailing Sakuya as she's trying to investigate the Scarlet Devil Mansion's progress on the rocket ship, and she says, "I don't mean to boast, but I am skilled in tailing." This is followed up with Sakuya immediately noticing her and being like, "How long is it gonna take for you to notice that I've known you've been following me?" She's so fucking adorable, man. The thing I love to see more of after reading this chapter is more stories told from Yomu's perspective. The last chapter is unique. The eagle-eyed out there might have noticed that I only showed 7 characters when there's a total of 8 chapters. Why is that? That's because this chapter is told from the third person. Weirdly enough, chapters 4 and 5 did start in third person briefly, for some reason before switching into their respective perspectives. But no, not this one. This chapter serves entirely to fill in the gaps that Silent Sinner's ending left. If you read that and thought it was unfinished, in a way it is, and in a way it isn't. Silent Sinner doesn't tell the whole story. It leaves out the gap in time while Reimu was on the moon. It just cuts back to the shrine, probably a month later, when Reimu comes back from the moon. Lunatic Runagate shows that she was treated pretty well by the Watatskis. They just had her dance around a bit around the lunar capital, showing off her powers to channel gods to kill off the suspicion that the Watatskis are traitors before being sent back off to Earth. The chapter ends on a scene that takes place right after Silent Sinner leaves off with Aiden and Kaguya rolling up in the pool party. Seeing as what happens with Aiden is a bit of a spoiler, I'll leave that out. Read it for yourself if you'd like to find out what happens. Would I recommend Cage and Lunatic Runagate? Honestly, it depends on what someone wants out of Touhou. If you just want to play the games and don't care about the stories whatsoever, then what the fuck are you doing here? If you want some manga, a story dripping with excitement, then Lunatic Runagate might not be for you. Who I would recommend this to is for someone who finishes Silent Sinner with questions. Questions about the gap in time and detail and craves to learn more. That kind of person would be more interested in learning more about the world of Touhou. That person is who this book caters to. It's not a long story, it's damn short and can be read pretty quickly. I enjoyed reading through this book. It gave a lot of insight into the characters I like and some characters I didn't care as much about and allowed me to understand them more as characters. Cage and Lunatic Runagate isn't for everyone, but if you're interested in Touhou's world, you'll find something of value in this novel.